And we are live. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Boost VC podcast. Together in conversation with our incredible guests, we'll dig into the latest topics around venture capital, startups, and emerging technologies. I'm your host, Adam Draper, founder and managing director of Boost VC, and I happen to be a fourth-generation venture capitalist. And today, we're here with Liv Erickson. Virtual and augmented reality, it doesn't say wizard here, but I'm going to say wizard. But she's a developer evangelist at Microsoft. She's based in San Francisco. She's the creator of and host of just a backslash VR show, web show for aspiring VR and AR developers. So she's a professional of what I'm doing. So I'm probably going to learn how to do this from her, and then then I'll get into that. Yeah, is there anything else you want to say about yourself?
I like the term VR AR wizard, and I might start putting that on my business cards instead.
I think that you should, and I agree with any time people get to use Harry Potter-esque terms in their everyday life.
Yes.
Okay, before we get in too deep, I really want to cover probably your finest VR moments, which would have to be just based off this general resume, Kitten VR. And what, I checked it out, but what is Kitten VR?
So one of the jobs of a developer evangelist is to get people excited about technology in addition to teaching them how to build it. So what I saw when I was learning how to build VR myself was a lot of the sample applications were first-person shooters. And I was like, okay, I like the mechanics, but what else could we do with that? That's good. And so I was going through these tutorials. I was teaching myself development, and I was like, okay, well, what if instead of shooting kittens, or shooting anything really, we apply that mechanic to collecting things and running around and finding kittens. And I have a cat, and I know the internet really likes cats. So I decided that I should start using kittens in my VR tutorials.
It's brilliant because isn't like sharing kittens the number one thing on the internet?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know that.
I'm going to say it here. I think it's 55% of the internet is just cat pictures.
Yeah, they're really they're like human status now in terms of I know cats that have managers now. Apparently that's a thing, the famous internet cats.
I actually tangentially know someone who manages dogs. So that is, it's a real profession. It's an agency model for pets.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating. Okay. What is your original virtual reality or augmented reality story? Why? All
right. So I obviously, like a lot of people who are interested in VR and technology, was into science fiction growing up. Big Star Wars fan. Really big Star Wars fan.
Specifically? Anything else? Anything other than Star Wars or?
Star Wars was a lot of it. I'm kind of a lot of it. I've got a ton of Star Wars memorabilia.
Did you play the Star Wars card game? I got some of those cards, but
no, I didn't. But I played some of the older video games, and so I really like science fiction, but I never really thought about it as an actionable career move until I moved out to Silicon Valley and I started seeing everybody working on these really future-facing emerging technologies. And I thought, wow, I want to work on something that is that cool. And I was actually just watching YouTube and I found a video where someone was talking about having just tried the DK2. And I don't normally advocate that people make career-changing, life-altering decisions based off of YouTube videos. But in this case, that's exactly what I did. And I essentially was like, all right, that looks really cool. I'm just going to drop everything that I've done and start teaching myself VR development. And that week, actually, there was an SBVR meetup down in Mountain View, 2 miles away from my apartment. And I was like, great, this is fate. This is destiny. This is what I was put on the earth to do. That was going to be my answer there. And I went, and the first experience that I ever tried other than cardboard was the 6th Sense lightsaber training demo. So
it called it, you were like, Star Wars, I can do Star Wars in virtual reality, sold life mission solved.
Yes. And essentially, it was really just this impact of experiencing one of my lifelong dreams that was this kind of like fantasy world and stepping into that and participating in that, where I had this idea where, you know, I could tell that virtual and augmented reality was coming, and it's going to just fundamentally change what we think of as reality and what is like what we're capable of doing.
Yeah, I wrote a blog post actually like 6 months ago that was in reference to, you know, everyone thinks that virtual reality, like the experiences are all about what is around you, all that stuff, but really it's about what they enable you to do as control, like what the controllers allow you to do. So it's like, I have superpowers. Like you literally get I can teleport there. I can, like, it's all the things in science fiction that you've always wanted to be able to do. Now you can. And it's, yeah. So I think that is awesome. Okay. So we know why and who you are, but what is your favorite VR experience, virtual reality experience right now?
At this exact moment,
other than kittens.
Super in love with Audio Shield. I somehow didn't start trying it until like I played it for the first time like 3 days ago. Like I just totally missed it on my collection of Steam games, and I am obsessed with playing it right now. And you know, you can put kittens on there, so you have kittens flying at you too. That's you could add kittens to anything. I'm also really competitive at Space Pirate Trainer. I'm obsessed
with Space Pirate Trainer.
It's like so hard not to be. Especially.
So my team cut me off, so I'm actually not allowed to play anymore really. But yeah, I'm pretty good. I felt like I was getting up to the next level, and then they cut me off because it's so good. My team's obsessed with Longbow from the lab, and I'm just not as good at it. So I'm Space Pirates all the way.
Yeah, I think the Sci-Fi, the Star Wars world that comes in, and that's probably plays into it.
And when people like listen to this, it's like really difficult to explain Space Pirates. People are like, it sounds really cool just because you say Space Pirates, but I like try to explain, like, it's like Space Invaders in 3D, and you have guns, and like but it doesn't sound like as compelling as it really is, like virtual reality. Like you really do need to experience the virtual reality world. So okay, what goes mainstream first in the VR world? And I'm talking a lot about VR, and I know that Microsoft is focused a lot on augmented reality. Are you actually, instead of answering that, like, are you more excited about augmented reality or virtual reality, or?
I don't think I can say more. I'm excited about different things from both kind of ends of that spectrum. I've been doing a lot of stuff with virtual reality because there are a number of different platforms to kind of be learning about and educating people on. Leading up to this point, we're starting to see more of those mixed and augmented reality headsets available for developers. So it's a little bit newer in terms of what more people have access to. So when we're trying to educate as many people about VR and AR as possible, we are breaking down a lot of the basics behind 3D development in general. As for me, I think that the part I'm most excited about is when it all is just like working on a contact lens, and I can just choose what degree of that I want.
Yeah. I think the perfect part of that with like before when it's working, like period, like yes, when all of it's working, it's gonna be fantastic. Contact lens, yes, that would be pretty awesome, or even just like injection into your brain. It'd be pretty awesome. Like being in a meeting and just having like a pet dog that no one else can see, like in the room, and you're like, Baxter, stop bothering me right now. Okay. Are you focused more right now? So it's not AR versus VR. You're thinking that they become sort of one. It's like a lot of the same technology that merges into one cool thing in the future. But what are you spending most of your time on right now?
Within the last couple of weeks, it's been a lot of Vive development. Before that, I was also doing a lot of stuff with some mobile VR. That tends to be the easiest thing for new developers to work with. More recently, I've started playing around with the HoloLens emulator, and they've got a bunch of resources up on the site where people can go and start playing around with that too. So it's kind of a mix of just whatever headset I feel like grabbing on a given day and poking around with more.
Got it. So if I'm a developer in the world of, I'm thinking, hey, I want to get into this. I want to build something. How easy is it to get into? First off, I'm not a developer, so this is me asking you as you are a developer. How easy is it to get into it, and what do you suggest to start with? Like, what's the starting one?
Whenever I get asked this question, it sounds really self-promotional because I'm going to list off a bunch of things that I made to try to make that process easier.
That's so weird that I asked you that question then.
So I like to think that what we're kind of seeing with this shift in immersive development and 3D development is that there's a lot of work being done to make creating those experiences as low friction as possible. In the past, when you wanted to build a VR experience or a 3D game, you wrote the whole thing from scratch, probably in C or C++, pretty low language stuff. You're writing all of the components of the graphics rendering yourself, and that's a lot lower programming than even what a lot of developers today kind of go through. My background's computer science, I have a CS degree from Virginia Tech, and I couldn't really do that based off of what I had learned in school. And that was partially because I hadn't taken specific graphics courses, but also because now there's a lot more in terms of game engines or, the web VR stack, different frameworks that are building around all of that make it really easy for really anybody to kind of dive in and start creating. And then when you start to look at resources for learning things like A-Frame, WebVR, Unity, development for the Vive, more and more people are sharing what they learn as developers who are building things and experimenting with different tool sets, and then sharing that out broadly. So, I host a VR developer show, Just a VR Show, on Microsoft's Developer Network, where I try to break down a lot of these different development options, design patterns, the differences between like what kind of things you have to think about when you're deciding on, do I build for a mobile VR experience or a desktop VR experience? And like, where do you find kind of these step-by-step tutorials to do that? And that was kind of how Kitten VR was born, was as a sample project that I wrote step-by-step how to build so that people could go through and see what the final product would look like. And they could also follow through a whole bunch of different steps that I went through. And some of the times my blog posts about Kitten VR were, here's 4 things that didn't work to try to do this one task, and the one thing that did. What
do you think the biggest misconception about like building a VR experience or an augmented reality experience is from the developer's perspective now that you've built a lot of stuff? Like what is it, the like coming with the idea? I don't know. It's your.
I think it's doubt. Like, honestly, it's people seeing this as a technology that seems really impressive because it does, and then thinking, well, I don't know if I have the skills to do that. And what I've seen is a lot of developers, when they're kind of given this environment where they can start exploring what that looks like in a place where it's safe to fail and like experiment, then they don't end up having those doubts anymore, and they go off and build really, really cool things.
I love that, actually. I mean, I think just entrepreneurs on a whole level, like the biggest problem getting into it is doubting yourself in some way. Okay, so tell us a little bit about the VR, AR, VR. This says AR, VR. I always say VR, AR. I don't know. Do you choose one before the other when you're doing this?
With the show, I did it because it flowed really nicely.
AVR,
AVR show.
That makes
other
sense.
than that, not really.
So tell us, you're running an academy.
Yes.
Are you trying to find participants right now? Are you when? How does it work? When do I sign up?
Yeah, so we started the AR/VR Academy to help women in underrepresented communities have a place where they could come and figure out how to apply their existing knowledge, regardless of what that was, whether it was development focused, design focused, or completely outside of the tech industry, and come in and learn the basics of pretty much everything that I just listed off about, like what does it look like to design for VR? How do we boil down the software engineering process to explain to someone who doesn't have a CS degree or experience as a developer, like what that looks like and what those roles look like, so they can get more exposed to not just VR and AR, but the tech industry and software building in general.
So is it like a multi-week thing that I'm a part of for a specific period of time, like curriculum? I have to study things, or is it like I get to build whatever I want? Like what? I'm just sort of trying.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. So we do a 6 weeks, a 6-week series where we meet once a week for about 3 hours once a week and go through guided exercises that talk about how to start thinking about VR applications, how to start designing VR experiences, learning about the different types of input, and then teaching the basics of the Unity game engine for mobile VR development, specifically so that people who don't have experience programming can get exposed to that engine and start feeling comfortable playing with it. The first time I opened up Unity, I immediately closed it because it was just kind of intimidating to open up and say, I don't know where any of these things are. I don't know what this does. And I immediately just relaunched it and just said, okay, like let me start clicking on things. But we're trying to help people who maybe aren't comfortable just clicking on things and taking that approach.
It's sort of like the onboarding accessibility. Like you're trying to inspire a bunch of new big developer people. I mean, that's sort of what your role is in general in the ecosystem. So you're doing it well. Yeah, it's awesome. I believe in education. That's in general. I don't know if anyone's against it, but I'm for it.
It's also super fun. So we're accepting applications for a little bit longer for our fall series, and we're running those twice in San Francisco, once in Silicon Valley, down in the South Bay area, and then also one class in LA. And we're looking at onboarding a few other cities with that. But basically, we want to build up this community of people who are motivated to learn together and apply that to VR and AR. That's
great. The verticalized education is sort of, I think, one of the futures of education. I do. Before we get into sort of lightning round type situation, I wanted to ask again, what is the future of VR kittens, and how do I get involved in that? Because if it's as big in VR as it is on the internet, I want a piece.
Well, there's a kitten asset on the Unity asset store that is just getting a lot of popularity that I use now in probably about half of any of the demos that I built. As far as Kitten VR goes, at some point I'd really like to get it as a full standalone game, because right now it's a very simple one scene experience. You collect, I think, 6 or 7 kittens and then you're done. And I'd like to build that out into a full experience because they're kittens. But I'm also taking the kittens into other platforms. So I recently built something using the Vuforia SDK for mobile AR and took the kittens in the office. So you could like point your phone at things and kittens would pop up everywhere. Kids really love the kittens in AR. So something like Pokemon Go with kittens, I think, has a lot of potential.
Poke kittens. I'm telling you, like, I think Poke kittens is a thing. I think that's going to be the next, Kittenmon.
Yeah, and if you want to get more involved specifically with Kitten VR as it stands today, all of the source code's up on GitHub.
Done.
You can grab it and start building your own kitten levels.
Well, maybe I need to learn. Well, okay, but also I have one other thing. If you were to build one experience today and release it like today, what would it be? So, for instance, I would love to build Hogwarts.
That's a good one.
Okay. And I think that would basically own the world. I could literally just like level up in Hogwarts and like get better wizard magic abilities. Yeah, I would do that. What would be the one thing that you would want to exist that you would want to build?
So I have to pick from a bunch of different ideas, but the one I think that would be really relevant given like today is I would really love to build a Ready Player One tie-in, like an augmented reality tie-in, like Ingress or Pokemon Go, for when the movie comes out next year. So you go around the world, you're trying to find the keys, you're trying to solve those puzzles. and it all ties into the Ready Player One.
I mean, it's gonna be cool when you can just like leave money on the street, and it's just someone finds it, discovers it by solving a puzzle.
Yeah.
I think that's gonna be a real thing. Okay, quick. We got the lightning round, and okay, ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, I just want to make sure. If you had to pick a superhero power, what would it be?
Oh man, a superhero power. I like the idea of being able to steal other people's powers.
Okay.
But that feels a little bit like a cop-out because it's just basically saying all of them.
Well, you said steal other people's power. You didn't even say like get to use their powers. You just want everyone else not to have them.
I never actually thought about how the wording on that works, but I was thinking more of like borrow them. Like maybe I would take them for a little bit, but I'd give them back.
So
like,
Peter Petrelli in Heroes.
Like one, maybe only one at a time.
The empath. Yeah, I get it. What do you think the greatest invention of our time is, other than virtual reality and augmented reality?
It's going to be a bad answer, but I'm looking at my mechanical switch keyboard. I think that they're like awesome, and they enable my productivity to just go through the work, like the roof compared to it.
That's such a developer answer. Like,
it really is.
This is the greatest. This keyboard that I have is the greatest invention of our lifetime.
Vaccines, maybe. Probably a better answer. I should reconsider that question.
Okay, what is the perfect breakfast meal?
All right. The perfect breakfast meal, I'm going to go with sweet potatoes, some kind of protein, and an egg, because that's what I've been eating a lot recently. And it's this good combination of like something that's kind of sweet, but not dessert sweet, with protein and energy. It gives you a lot of energy.
I never jumped on the sweet potato hype train. I couldn't get there on it. It's not yet really sweet. It's not quite fries. I decide. I want my vegetables and my starch to decide what it is. Okay, are you a Harry Potter fan? I don't.
Yes, I am.
Okay, got it. If the Sorting Hat was on your head right now, which house would you be a part of? And just Gryffindor, Ravenclaw, Hufflepuff, Slytherin, or invent a new one. And what's it all about?
Well, I'm probably going to say Slytherin because I just said I wanted to steal everyone else's superpowers.
Yeah, I know. That was pretty evil. Yes. Ambitious, though, is the Slytherins. It's the ambitious group.
I get sorted into Slytherin every time I take one of those quizzes, and that's my Pottermore house. So I'm also reading the Cursed Child.
Maddie Calendar just gave me the Cursed Child, and I am very excited about reading it. If someone made a movie about your life, who would you want to play you?
Oh man. So my answer to this is probably going to be
Samuel L. Jackson.
I was gonna say Reese Witherspoon because I really was like Legally Blonde had a really big impact on my ambition growing up, where I was like, oh yeah, like she could do anything, I could do anything.
Legally Blonde was fantastic.
Yeah. So I think that she did a really good job.
Reese Witherspoon, it is. I get it. I would want her to play me in story about my life. You are now a resident of Mars. What is your occupation?
Are there other people on the planet with me, or am I alone? That might change my answer.
Okay. Let's say small city, actually it'd be more tribes. Each has about 10,000 people each, like 100,000 people on the total.
I'd like to think that I'd still probably be building. I'd want to do something with like the spaceships that get people around. So maybe building like hibernation systems with, maybe more VR integrated into them for like the spaceships. But
so you're on Mars, but you're not going outside.
I'm not going to leave Mars.
You're not going outside because you're in virtual reality. So it doesn't matter that you're actually in Mars. Actually, Philip Rosedale, he's the creator of Second Life, but also CEO of High Fidelity. He said, why go to space? Let's go to hard drives. And
I saw that.
It's like the greatest quote. I love that because it's so true. Okay. What is your definition of success?
My definition of success is, I want to say kind of broadly, like making things better and feeling very happy about how you're doing it. Like that's a broad thing. And I think success can be defined for a lot of different people in very different ways. But if you're improving the world around you or your world,
it's like,
and you feel good about it,
and you feel good about it. So
yeah,
it's like an emotional, but also like a metrics driven progress type thing. Okay. So, thank you very much. That is the end of our podcast. I really, really appreciate you coming on today. We don't have enough time for Mark Zuckerberg today, which is a huge bummer, but we'll have to catch him next time. And thank you so much, Liv, for being a part of this.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.